Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, March 22nd, and welcome to our video commentary. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about this commotion, this reaction, if you will, to President Trump's phone call to, is it President or Prime Minister Putin? I don't know exactly what his title is. Let's just say to the head of Russia. And as you may know, he won an election. It was a sham election. Everybody knows that. He won an election with like 70% of the vote and so on. And everybody knows that it was a sham election. That's not a shock to anybody. But I do find the reaction to be interesting. Many of the Democrats who apparently had no problem whatsoever when President Obama congratulated the same Putin back in 2012, they're now all bent out of shape, saying, how can President Trump congratulate Putin? I mean, this is another example of collusion or whatever. I even saw a story today. Somebody was saying that Putin has information about Trump, and that's why Trump has to congratulate him. I don't buy any of that, but that's the kind of garbage going around. So the reaction from the Democrats is hysterical and hypocritical, and you don't honestly want to spend a lot of time thinking about that. The reaction for some sectors of the media is sometimes also hysterical. Again, the same media people who had no trouble complaining when President Obama did it now are all bent out of shape. I think that the reason that President Trump did it, and I want to reemphasize here in the video that I'm not a fan of Putin. Okay, I think Putin is a very tough, rough guy, and I'm not a fan of Putin. And as I said before, I have no doubt that this was a sham election. Completely sham election. So I have no doubt about that too. But I think what President Trump is doing here is perhaps displaying a little bit of realism and understanding that he's going to have to deal with Putin. And he's going to have to work with Putin in the Middle East and in other parts of the world. And, with Putin, you either get along with him or you don't. And it's probably better if we at least had a professional relationship with Putin. Putin, of course, has a big military. He's got nuclear weapons, and he has shown a willingness to be aggressive in places like Syria. And, you want to be able to work with him. In many ways, I think Putin is actually in a very weak position with respect to President Trump because his economy is not that strong. And we could very easily bring his economy, put him on his knees by simply, having sanctions and so on. So I understand why President Trump did it. Again, I'm not a fan of Putin. I would rather see a true democratic election in Russia, but that's obviously not going to happen anytime soon. So you deal with what they have. And what they have is a guy named Putin who could work with you or maybe sit down with you and negotiate something with you to let's say, improve the situation in Syria, which is a horrific human crisis. And maybe you can get something done in Syria if you work with Putin. So again, a lot of hypocrisy on the part of Democrats, a lot of hypocrisy from people in the media or some in the media who are suddenly shocked, that the President of the United States would salute the President of Russia. Again, these are the same media people who had no trouble when President Obama did it, but all of a sudden they're in shock. My goodness, what a terrible thing that Trump is doing it. But I think overall, if you look at the big strategic picture, if you look at the big picture, as they like to say, I think President Trump did the right thing. In the sense that he congratulated a guy who won an election, sham election, yes, but, it's their country. What are we going to do now? Start, getting involved in elections in Russia? I thought we didn't like it when they got involved in our elections. So, I think this is much to do about nothing, frankly. Let's give President Trump a chance to work with Putin. I actually think that President Trump and Putin are going to get along just fine. Because if there is one thing that Putin understands, being a former member of the KGB, is he understands weakness and strength. And if you deal with Putin from a position of strength, which is where I think President Trump is coming from, I think you're going to get along just fine and may just be able to work out something with Putin that is beneficial in Syria and perhaps in other parts of the world. But all this commotion about Trump calling Putin, I think a lot of it is just political, frankly, and in some ways even very hypocritical. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We have all of these videos over in YouTube. We also have them on Twitter, and we also have them on my blog. Bye-bye, everybody. Beautiful day here in North Texas with spring. Just absolutely beautiful. Bye-bye.